Hey there, powerhouse. Are you an ambitious woman in corporate America who's done playing small and ready to make massive moves in your career? Let me introduce you to Her Collective, your ultimate online community for breaking barriers, climbing the ladder, and absolutely crushing your 2025 goals. Inside Her Collective, you'll get tools, trainings, and resources to help you dominate at work, a tribe of like-minded women who lift while they climb, expert strategies to keep you fired up, focused, and unstoppable, and weekly group coaching and monthly master classes that will elevate your career and amplify your expertise. This is for the woman who is ready to invest in their growth. This is for the woman who wants to lead, collaborate, and build unshakable momentum. And this is for the woman who refuses to settle for anything less than extraordinary. If this sounds like you, Her Collective is calling your name. Let's make 2025 your most impactful year yet. Head to joinhercollective.com to join the movement and start leveling up today. Welcome to the Glass Ceiling and Sticky Floor podcast, the podcast where we get real about the challenges women face in work, life, and leadership. I'm your host, Erica Rooney, HR executive, keynote speaker, and executive coach, and I'm on a mission to get more women into positions of power and keep them there. This is the space where we call out the paradoxes, being told to lean in but not too far, to speak up but not too loudly, to be ambitious but not too ambitious. Does that sound familiar? We are over all that. Here, we break down the sticky floors that keep us stuck, from imposter syndrome and perfectionism to burnout and fear, and give you real strategies to shatter those glass ceilings once and for all. So if you're ready to rewrite the rules, own your power, and take your career and life to the next level, you are in the right place. Today's guest is Dr. Heather Collins, a cognitive neuroscientist on a mission to make brain science practical, powerful, and accessible for all of us. Dr. Heather earned her PhD in psychological and brain sciences, and she spent her career studying how we learn, think, and remember, not just in the lab, but in the real world. She's been published in top-tier journals like the New England Journal of Medicine, collaborated on research with NASA astronauts, y'all, and delivered not one, not two, but 3 TEDx talks that bring neuroscience to life in these bold and energizing ways. Now, whether you are looking to improve memory, boost confidence, or build a smarter, more effective team, Dr. Heather Collins believes your brain is your most important resource, and today she is going to unlock it for us. So, Dr. Heather Collins, welcome to the show, and I have no idea why I have to say your name that way, but it's the only way it can come out of my mouth.
We'll take it. Thank you, Erica. I'm delighted to be here.
I love it. I'm so impressed. I'm so excited. I am so excited. So we got to dive right on in, okay? Neuroscientist and keynote speaker, how does all this come together?
It is not a common combination. It all started with me growing up loving performing. I grew up as a dancer, tap, jazz, ballet, Hawaiian Tahitian, was in a modern company. In college for 2 years. I also grew up as a speaker doing public speech and debate when I was in high school competitively and going on from there. And as I was working on my PhD, I realized that I was kind of an odd duck because I actually really enjoyed sharing and speaking about the research that was going on and that I was doing with not just students, not just other academics, but really with anybody who would listen. With my grandmother, with family friends, with high school students for outreach programs. And so it became a passion of mine to engage in more and more of that dissemination of science in a way that could affect people where they are. Do you pay your taxes, Erica?
I believe so.
Okay. Oh, we're on the record. She pays her taxes. Well, I do too. At least I think I did. Yes, I did. And anyone who pays their taxes funds research. And it was frustrating to me that a lot of that research is written by scientists for other scientists, and really taxpayers don't necessarily see a lot of ROI on that. And so I'm bringing that ROI to taxpayers, to the public, to everybody who pays for this research. We all have brains. I think we all value our brains. And if we sit and think about it, we all really want to know how to get the most out of our brains. And the research can help us understand how to do that.
Optimizing brain power. I love all that. And I think it's so interesting because it feels like neuroscience is having its moment right now in the spotlight. And I'm just curious, why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's interesting to me that there's definitely this perception of that. And you're certainly not the first person who's told me about that. But I eat, sleep, breathe, and live.
I was like, it's always been the bell of your ball
every day. So for me, this is just another day. I think part of it is that there's an increase in technology associated with neuroscience. So MRI scanners are very common now. And really, they weren't that common 15 years ago, let's say, and were certainly a lot more expensive. And so I think with the increase in availability of MRIs, which is the primary way we study human brains, they tend to frown upon us cutting open a live person's skull and cracking it open and seeing what happens. So that's why we use MRI. So I think that's helped. And I think people really do in this day and age of everything being accessible to us. I think people really are yearning to know more about what they can do to grow their brain capacity and help their brain move them where they want to go and achieve their goals.
I love that. I love that. And that leads me right into this next question, which is all about there are ambitious women who listen to this podcast, but most of those women either are feeling stuck or at one point in their life, they have felt stuck. What is going on inside of her brain when she feels like she has just hit that wall?
Oh, that's such a powerful question. It really is, because I think, as you said, at one point in time or another, at least once, probably several times, we've all felt stuck. And when we feel stuck, we feel like something is wrong with us. And I'm here to tell you, it's not. If you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like you're having a really challenging time moving forward, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your brain. In fact, this is actually your brain doing its job, because your brain's primary job is to protect you. So think about back in the cave people days. Our brains were really leery about going outside of that cave, maybe at certain times of day, like dusk, when there might be some predator out there ready to attack us. And that fear mechanism, it really holds over to today. And so feeling like we can't move forward is really just our brain saying change can be scary. And we're not sure about that. And it's safer just to stay where we are. And unfortunately, that's not necessarily what's in our best interest or what we want for ourselves. And so it's your brain protecting itself. It's your brain protecting you. And it's your brain attempting to be efficient and to optimize what it's doing. Now, the key is in getting unstuck. Because just as your brain's doing its job to protect itself, well, you can also shift your brain to actually help you engage in that change and become unstuck and to really move forward. So as we talked about, there's that fear response, right? And that's protecting ourselves, and that's in your amygdala. It's a little tiny area of the brain, deep in the center of your brain, but it's responsible for emotional processing and fear. And for a tiny little area of your brain, boy, that fear response is big. Because when you're afraid, what does it feel like? Can you do anything?
No, I just want to crawl in a hole and contemplate my demise.
Exactly. We all do. And so the really interesting thing is that when we're engaged in fear, when we're engaged in this deeply innate emotional process that protects ourselves, that actually hijacks your prefrontal cortex, responsible for thinking, decision-making, reasoning, problem-solving, goal-setting, and actually moving forward. So that fear cycle prevents us from actually using our prefrontal cortex to do what we want to do. So the key is to shift. And that is, we want to make small shifts to shut down that fear process and engage in our prefrontal cortex and higher order cognitive processing. So that can be as simple as asking questions, asking a different question. It can be as simple as removing yourself from the situation, getting up, going for a walk, calling a friend, calling a family member, playing with a pet for a few minutes, switching tasks and focusing on something else. But the minute you make that shift, however small and subtle it is, then you're really working toward escaping that fear loop and moving into that goal forward motion path.
Hey there, listeners. If you have ever felt like you're stuck in a place, held back by self-doubt, perfectionism, or that pesky inner critic, you're not alone. We all face those sticky floors that keep us from reaching the heights we dream of. But guess what? It's time to shatter those limiting beliefs and toxic behaviors to uncover infinite possibilities. My book, Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors, is your ultimate guide to smashing through barriers, overcoming limiting beliefs, and stepping into your full potential. This book has been endorsed by none other than the great Mel Robbins, best-selling author and motivational powerhouse. It's also been featured in Success Magazine, so you know it's packed with insights that work. Inside, you'll find real-life sticky floor stories, practical strategies to help you navigate your own sticky floor moments, and a whole lot of inspiration to keep you climbing. This isn't just a book, it's your roadmap to success, confidence, and freedom. Grab your copy of Glass Ceilings and Sticky Floors today at www.ericaandersonrooney.com. Whether you're in the boardroom, the classroom, or just starting out, this book is for you. Because no one, and I mean no one, deserves to stay stuck. No one deserves to feel small, and you have glass ceilings to shatter. Let's do this. Okay. So I always envision also every time you step outside of your comfort zone, it gets a little bit bigger, right? And so that you can do harder and harder things. And I think that's what you're saying with you take these incremental shifts. Yes?
Incremental shifts. Yeah. And it's really important too that fear can become a cycle, and your brain moves fast. Your neurons fire at a fraction of a second. And so just making the small shifts is enough to change your brain's thought patterns and eliminate that fear pattern. And as you said, incremental change is exactly where it's at. So once you start small, then you can grow it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, I got to tell you this story. It's slightly embarrassing, but it's just, this whole thing is mind-boggling to me, and I'm really embracing it as I'm learning more and more about myself. But I turned 40 this year, and I said, I'm going to do 40 hard things because I'm 40. That was just my thing. And so some of these things were big things, like run another half marathon. I had quit my job, so it was taking a lot of steps in my newfound entrepreneurship, are all of those things. But then one of the things that became one of the very first hard things that made me go, this isn't normally a hard thing for most people, was I had to have a garage door repairman come over, right? And he had to reset my garage. And you know those little clickers in your car that
yes,
they fit on your belt like a beeper, but then there's also now the ones in the rear view mirrors that you press the button if you have a fancy car. Well, I've got one of those where you can program it and it's supposed to just open it up. I've never been able to program the dang thing. So I have this professional garage door repairman coming over. I'm sure he knows exactly how to fix this problem that I have. Do I want to ask him? Absolutely not, because I wouldn't want to inconvenience him. I wouldn't want to, I don't know. What if he's not going to think I don't know how to do this? I don't know. I had all these fears, and I was like, okay, this is a hard thing. So I went for it and I asked him to do it. And sure enough, it took him 1 minute and he was done. Okay. I'm plotting and thoughting through my life, and I'm recognizing that one small question, asking something, was a hard thing for me. So I make a note of it. I'm getting up and speaking to 700 people on stage. I launched a online digital platform, right? All these other things that most people would be like, oh my God, those are so hard. I wouldn't put those on my list. I was like, no, that wasn't that hard. Then the other day, I'm sitting in Maine, I'm up at the bar, and I'm reading a book, and I was like, I've got a great idea for a post to put on Instagram or LinkedIn about, are you comfortable sitting at the bar alone, eating dinner, and make a whole thing of it. And I was like, it'd be really great if I had a picture of me sitting at the bar reading my book alone. But that would then require me to ask someone to take a picture of myself sitting at the bar alone. And did I want to do that? And when I tell you, I wrestled with that for 15 minutes before I was like, Erica, this is one of those hard things. And now that you know it, you have to do it. And then, of course, I asked my waitress, did she have a problem with it? Absolutely not. She took it within 2 seconds and then the moment was over. But what is wrong with me?
Nothing is wrong with you. And actually, there are a few really important things about what you said. And one thing is that there are individual differences in what we consider difficult or not. And Erica, you are a seasoned professional. You have been a corporate executive. You have trained your brain that all of these really, really difficult professional tasks, piece of cake, no big deal. And that's because of your experience. What you have not trained yourself to do is ask for help, it sounds like. Is that correct?
That may be slightly accurate.
Right. And so how were you able to get from wherever you started to this amazing apex of professional awesomeness? You did it through practice, and you did it through small achievements leading to bigger achievements. And so the same thing happens with other areas of your life. We all have different areas of our life that we are not experienced with, or that we, that's our one little area and we're not. My thing, I really, really dread more than anything, mailing packages at the post office. Getting everything packaged up and getting the label on it, I just dread it. And
well, it is an
sometimes
inconvenience.
It is an inconvenience. And my post office is open for 3 hours a day with a 2.5 hour lunch break in between. So it is inconvenient, but that's my dread. And when we have something that we fear, or that's uncomfortable or feels icky, we tend to engage in avoidance, right? And that actually just builds up the fear more and more in your brain and makes it worse. And so the key is for these things that we want to tackle that are new, that are different, and that are uncomfortable, you just have to dive in and start somewhere. And your brain is really good at creating habits, right? Now, those habits can be good or they can be bad, but they are habits. So what we want to do is actually start with very, very small incremental steps, like asking the garage door repairman for help and asking the waitress to take a picture of you. We want to start with those steps that probably cognitively are small, and you can acknowledge that they're small, but emotionally, there's a lot of fear associated with them. And so that's why you were really hard on yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. It doesn't help anything at all. It just stresses you out, and stress is bad for memory, cognition, and everything. So don't do that. And but it is why we can hold two things in our mind at once, that our prefrontal cortex involved in reasoning and thinking says, this is ridiculous, I should be able to do this. And our emotional center, our limbic system with that amygdala is saying, oh, I'm so afraid. This feels really icky and I'm really uncomfortable with this.
Yeah. Well, what I love about it, and I'm going to say, everybody should do 40 hard things a year, because it forces me to, number one, identify them and recognize them. And I think in a normal situation where I didn't give myself this challenge to document where my struggles were, I would have just skipped over the awareness of it. I would have pushed through, I would have ignored it, and then I would not have seen this pattern that I'm now seeing, right? Not asking for help. But now that I know it, right, I can't unring that bell. And so now I can actually do the work to figure out, why is it that you struggle with this? How can you lean into that more? And then start making those habit changes so that I can actually start asking for help.
Yeah.
Right? Allow people to help me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And what you said about awareness, I think, is really crucial. And I think for high achieving women, we especially tend to feel stuck. We're kind of used to this constant advancement. And when there's a small plateau, that's when we feel stuck. And part of what makes us feel stuck is not being aware of what's happening, that we've automatized so many things in our daily life that it feels good for a while. It feels stable. It feels comfortable. And then for high achieving women, that comfort becomes discomfort. And so that awareness is such an important point. And in research, we call that metacognitive awareness, where you're simply aware of your own thinking. And a great way for high achieving women to become unstuck is to do exactly what you did, is to stop and think about, what are the areas of my life that I've automated, that have kind of become habit in a sense. And where do I want those to be versus where are they now? And even if you take 10 minutes a day and stop and just think about that, that will actually help you become unstuck. And this is antithetical to a lot of high achieving professional women because you're like, 10 minutes a day, where am I going to get that? Well, 10 minutes a day can help you become unstuck, or you can blow through that 10 minutes with busy task work and continue the path you're on, which is a plateau. So it's really an investment in yourself. And when you take that 10 minutes a day, and I don't know how long it took you to come up with those 40 items, 40 is a lot, but certainly in 10 minutes, you could come up with a few things.
Well, I don't know what all of them are yet. They have to come to me as I go through life, right? Like I didn't know that I was going to be faced with this decision to ask the garage door repairman. It just showed up, you know?
And when it showed up, you identified it.
I acted.
You acted,
yes.
yeah. And so when you make notes of things that are difficult for you, things that might be keeping you stuck, things that have been automated, then you can interrupt those. So when things are automated, again, your brain, it fires off really, really rapidly. And so if you don't take the time to actually make a list and really deeply think about what you're automating, then you can't interrupt that automation. So the key is being able to make a list. I engage in that metacognitive awareness. Where are my thoughts? What am I thinking? What's happening that's making me automate all of this? And what do I want to do instead? And that way, when that thing comes up, you know to stop and to shift and start asking other questions to move yourself out of that. And that's exactly what you did when that garage door repairman showed up. You thought to yourself, this is really challenging for me, but I know it's challenging for me. I've already identified this challenge in myself. And now I can stop and ask a question. And when you're asking questions, you're engaging in curiosity. And curiosity helps your brain learn. It helps your brain grow. Learning, by the way, actually physiologically changes your brain. It makes those neural pathways grow thicker and more robust and can shift them from feeling like you're thinking with a 2-lane road to a 4-lane freeway. And so these are things that are good for you. And these are things that will actually, they're good for your brain, but good for your professional life too. This is how you're going to get unstuck and advance and move past those plateaus and continue achieving.
I love that. And when you're talking about learning, that can come in any way, shape, or form. It could be listening to a podcast that challenges you, right? Reading a book, reading a magazine, just doing something.
We're learning right now, Erica.
I'm learning. Right, definitely. I'm talking to our freaking neuroscientist.
You're learning from me. This is a learning experience. Everything is a learning experience, or everything can be a learning experience. And often all you need to do in order to shift it into a learning experience is engage in curiosity and ask questions. And that's because curiosity, one of the key regions involved is your anterior cingulate cortex. And it's a little bit like, kind of like a gateway where it determines, is something going to go along this path in the brain or is it going to go along that path? And when you engage in curiosity, it says, oh, wow, I need to shift this right to that prefrontal cortex so that we can really think about how things are going and make decisions and engage in some problem solving. And just like any neurobiological habit for your brain, curiosity can become a really good habit where you don't have to think about doing it. You just do it.
Well, and honestly, that's what I coach on a lot of women, especially inside her collective. We always talk about approaching it with a curious mindset, like asking people, why did you say it that way? Or what was your intent with that? And where do you want to go with this? And when you lead with that rather than assumptions, you get so much further. So not only is it good for your brain, it's also good for your career.
Yeah. Funny thing, right? Learning is good for your career.
Learning is good for your career.
Learning about your people, your organization, your goals, learning about everything.
Yes.
We love learning.
I want to talk about the expert brain, right? Because you talk about building an expert brain, one that works smarter, not harder. And girl, that's what I'm here for. So how do we stop glorifying, in my world, this busyness that we're all after and really start tapping into more of that expert level thinking?
Yeah, so there's a really interesting dichotomy that happens, which is when we're busy, it's sort of that busyness you're talking about, sort of like you're on the hamster wheel and you're just just pedaling
I'm
along right
getting
on that
a
hamster
lot of
wheel.
stuff done, but I don't know what it is.
Right. And a lot of the stuff you're getting done is like little checklisty kinds of things. So here's the dichotomy is that when you get something done and you can check it off your list, you get a little bit of a dopamine squirt in your brain. And we all like a good dopamine squirt. It's a neurotransmitter that makes us feel good, makes us feel accomplished, makes us feel like we've done something. But chances are you might get a little dopamine squirt for ticking off those 20 little things off your busyness to-do list. But at the end of the day, you're still going to feel like something was lacking, like the big picture isn't getting done. And part of that is because we have to stop chasing that hamster wheel. We have to stop prioritizing being busy. And your brain's going to tackle what you give it. If you give it busy work, it's going to tackle that. But what you're talking about is not busy work. It's the big picture work. And in order for your brain to tackle big picture work and really to become an expert thinker, an expert at your whatever you do, you need that 10 minutes a day. Just as we talked about earlier, that 10 minutes a day to stop and write down your challenges. Well, you really need 10 minutes a day where you're not doing busy work. So if busy work is the habit and that's the hamster wheel your brain is running on, you have to stop it. And if you don't stop it, you can't change the mode of thinking that your brain is in. So stop it 10 minutes a day. That's literally all it will take to start seeing things shift. And during that 10 minutes, you think about the big picture. You write down your big goals. You divide them into sub goals. And those sub goals have to be actionable. They have to be realistic and achievable. So I might want world peace, but we're going to say that that's probably not a good goal to have. It's not achievable. And you want it to be measurable. And when your brain engages in this kind of deep thinking, it's going to propel you towards this goal-directed behavior. And by having sub-goals, you get rid of your busyness checklist and just have a sub-goal checklist. And maybe that means instead of ticking 20 little things off a day, you're ticking like one bigger thing off a day. But you know that one bigger thing is what, in fact, is moving you forward.
I'm so fascinated by this. And the one thing, though, that keeps popping up in my head is like, I feel so many women already saying like, I just struggle with the guilt of 10 minutes, right? Of sitting down and not doing something like folding the laundry or something else because there's always something to be done. And I guess my question is like, what would you say to that?
I would say that's the feeling of chasing the hamster wheel feels good because we're doing something, and doing nothing feels like a failure, I think, to a lot of women. And I would really, really like for us to reframe that 10 minutes, that's protected time for you. We hear about self-care a lot. Well, there's self-care for your brain too. You need to actually take the time and invest in giving your brain free thinking time to think about the bigger picture, time to ruminate, all of that. And this is really, really, really important. There's a network in your brain called the default mode network. And this is a network that's active when everything else is, you're not engaging in something specific, right? You're not speaking to an audience or in the middle of a meeting or, on a specific task. This is just when you're sitting, let's say. This default mode network activates and kind of bubbles to the surface. And that default mode network is what's required for creativity. It's what's required for critical thinking. And it really helps your brain kind of integrate everything else that's going on and making sense of it. So if you don't give your default mode network time to roam, then nothing else is going to congeal in your brain. And really, you're not going to move forward. So just as people will occasionally allow themselves to, take a nice bath or go get a massage or something else for self-care, taking time to just sit and think Get off your phone, get off your computer. You can have a piece of paper and a pen or pencil. We'll allow that. That's good. I love markers and colored pencils too, because maybe you want to doodle during this time. And really just think and be with yourself and give your brain that time. So that's part of working smarter, not harder, is you need to give your brain the time and space that will not just take you one step forward, but that will help you leap forward.
I always tell people it's that shift from being reactive to proactive. And like sometimes in the moment, it can feel like a waste of time, but it's what buys you more time in the end. It's writing the entire SOP to train a team later on. You've already got it documented as you do it. And so it's that proactive measurement. But I want to talk about this NASA stuff, this astronaut work. What did you do with them? Like, just give me all the details. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, well, I've been a collaborator on several published research papers with NASA. And the basic gist of it is that we have data that we've published looking at NASA astronauts' brain changes resulting from space flight. So they undergo an MRI of their brain before an International Space Station mission, and then again upon return, and we look at changes in the brain associated with different durations of space flight. And it's been fascinating. It's really interesting, especially given that space is absolutely blowing up as an area for tourism right now and for travel. Space exploration is ramping up again. The plans are for us to have a station on the moon, and from there, using that as a launch base to go to Mars. And that station on the moon, I feel like, is really going to be a massive area for research and development too, and really bring us a lot of science advances. And at the same time, there are several privatized space stations planned too. So I know you're going on vacation soon, Erica. Maybe your next vacation will be to the moon. Who knows?
No. I tell people all the time, I went skydiving one time and like never again. So you're absolutely not getting my ass.
So you don't want to sit on the top of a rocket.
You are absolutely not getting my ass on a rocket ship out to the moon, especially when I have been watching those people who had to stay out there for 8 months. No way. No ma'am, no ham, no turkey. Oh my gosh. All right, girl. You have this amazing career that you've built in taking these complex brain science pieces and turning them super relatable. And I think you've done an incredible job of that today. So I was like, check done, love all that. But for the woman who's listening today, if you could give her one piece of advice on like, this is the brain boosting action you need to take to make your brain work smarter, not harder, all of that, what should she do?
Oh, I have a good one.
One action, what?
Do you ever forget where you put your keys?
All the time.
And that happens to most of us. And the funny thing is, nearly every time I speak or I'm talking with a group or doing executive leadership coaching or anything, I hear from people, I'm really worried about my memory. I'm really worried that I'm so busy, I can't remember anything. And certainly this is true with your listeners, with a lot of high achieving women. And I'm here to tell you a really cool thing is that forgetting where you put your keys is not actually a memory problem. It's an attention problem. So that's a behavior we need to automate. You walk in to the house, you have one place where you put your keys, and that's it. So this is sort of a three-part thing, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Dive in.
Step number one, figure out what you can automate in your life and do it. Do you need to think about where you put your keys? No, that's really kind of a waste of your brain's effort.
Waste of my energy.
Your brain wants to think about really important things, not where you put your keys. So automate that. Pick one place to put your keys. That's it. And by the way, this also goes for kids with their backpacks and shoes. This goes for anything you bring into the house or anything you need to take out on your way out of the house.
It's making me think of the thing my mother always used to say, which was everything in its place and everything has a place and everything in its place. Something like that.
I mean, I think your mom might have been a secret neuroscientist because it's absolutely true. And this is how your brain works. Same thing with going in and out of the office, all of that. So automate as much as you can because that will help reduce the stress in your brain. And as we said, stress produces a hormone called cortisol, and that makes your memory terrible. That makes your thinking terrible. It interferes with your goal setting. We want to reduce all that stress. Number two, realize when you do need to pay attention to something. And that's the first thing, right? You can't remember something if it never makes it into your brain in the first place. So step one is we want to actually get it in there. The key is in these everyday moments, you want to actually stop, realize that you need to remember something and anchor that moment with a memory. And that could be an important occurrence in a meeting, something that somebody says to you that you really, really want to remember, a piece of feedback that you've received maybe. It could be a really great networking lunch where you've made some new contacts and you want to remember information about that. So the first step is simply pay attention and intend to make a memory. Intention is really important with memory. So then once we've made our intention, we actually want to make a robust memory. Memory is really one of my favorite areas of brain research. So memory is really made by this little tiny seahorse-looking structure in the center of your brain called the hippocampus. And your hippocampus is responsible for actually making sense of the outside world and deciding what gets to be made a memory and what doesn't. So we want to be intentional about it. And part of being intentional about it is that we want our hippocampus to not just act on its own little seahorse by itself. We want it to talk to other parts of the brain, because the more parts of your brain you have active while you're making a memory, the better chance you have of remembering it later. So rather than just through the hippocampus, we might have 5 or 6 different routes to remembering information. So let me give you an example of this. Think of an apple. Okay, was it a red delicious apple?
Well, it was, and then I knew you were going to ask me that. I just knew it. So then I was like, oh, I have to think of a golden delicious. So then I switched.
So then it was a golden delicious. Okay.
Yes.
So if we say think of an apple, you're probably bringing up a memory of just like, it's just something I see at the grocery store. Okay, now I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about holding a Granny Smith apple in your hand. And I want you, it was the biggest one you could find. I want you to feel the heft of it in your palm as you're holding it. And I want you to notice how shiny and bright green its skin is. And it might even be a little bit waxy looking. It's so shiny. And then you lift it up and you bring it to your face and you take a big bite out of it. And you can hear that crunch of that apple. And you can feel the juices that are sweet and tart and tangy in your mouth. And this apple's so juicy. A little bit of the juice even runs down the side of your mouth and down to your chin. And as you're chewing that first bite, you swallow it and you're so excited to take another bite because that apple was amazing. Okay, now open your eyes. Now, next time anybody asks you to think of an apple, that's what you're going to think about.
Ooh, okay.
So what we want to do to make these better memories, you want to be intentional, and then you want to try to use any kind of sensory information you can that's going to activate your brain's sensory cortices up here near the top. So you want to think about, is there a smell? Is there a touch? Is there a taste? Is there a sound? Is there a sight? Any of those things. Are they involved with it? The other thing is your brain is selfish. Your brain loves you. My brain loves me. So we're going to take advantage of that. Your brain remembers information directly related to you better than information that's not.
That makes total sense.
So we want to think about maybe how does that apple impact you? How do you feel when you eat that apple? What does that apple remind you of? Maybe it reminds you of your mom baking an apple pie when you're a kid and you love that. So you're going to take that information and anchor it to something about you. You're also going to anchor it to something you already know. So your brain has a vast amount of networks, and these networks are just hundreds of thousands of neurons connected that represent everything you know about the world. It's your brain's Wikipedia. So if you take new information and you link it to something you already know, then you're essentially creating a link to your brain's Wikipedia. And so that makes it more likely you're going to remember that in the future. So these are all really simple tips, but they grow your memory capacity substantially. And when you grow your memory capacity, you can not only remember more, but you can remember things faster and easier. And that can help you become more effective and more efficient in everything you're doing, because memory is something that's at the heart of everything we do all day, every day.
So are you telling me that I am screwing up my brain because I just put an Apple tag on my keys to find them?
No, because again, we want to automate things that aren't important, right?
That's right. We do.
Exactly what you've
we
done.
do. And you know
that's
what?
exactly what you've done.
I can't quite be as efficient as I want because my husband often drives my car because it's the bigger one and we haul the kids in it, but I was dying laughing.
Oh yeah, we're not holding you responsible
I was
for
like,
him.
because I just got to put that Apple tag on it and I just got to move on, you know? So find your systems.
Yeah,
make those systems work for you.
Right. And we're just going to tell him that he needs to put those keys in the same place every day too.
Listen, if I could solve that problem, I'd be a lot richer, right? Oh my gosh. So, oh my God, I love this conversation. It's incredible. You do speaking. Tell me what else you do. Where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm also still a research scientist. You don't want to read any of my published research papers unless you have insomnia, because again, they're written for scientists, and that's that literature. My more accessible work is on LinkedIn, and I write articles on LinkedIn exactly about what we've been talking about today, about how people can take findings from neuroscience and really apply them to their own lives to help them get where they want to go and to grow your memory capacity and all those fun things. So I'm on LinkedIn, and my website is drheathercollins.com, and anybody can learn more or contact me there also.
Oh my God, I love it. And what piece of advice, this is always my favorite last question, would you give this previous version of you, the version before you came out of your dance self and into this neuroscientist, this amazing person, knowing everything you know now? And I would also say knowing everything you know about the brain, right? Because that's so powerful. So tell me.
Yeah, I wish I knew all of this about the brain when I was about 15.
Right?
And that would have saved a lot of anguish in life.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. What I would tell my earlier self is don't be so hard on yourself. That life and professional life, it's not one straight path. It's a curvy mountainous road. And you don't know what's coming around the corner. And you could be going uphill next, or you could be going downhill. But that's part of the joy of life too. When, I was academically raised, let's say, in this environment where everybody goes on to become a professor, and that's what your professors expect you to do. And I really struggled after one of my postdoctoral fellowships with, I just don't know if that's for me. And this is what I've been trained to do, and spent 6 years in grad school and 5 years in postdoctoral fellowships. And I just don't know if that's for me. And really had to try new things and put myself out there and take risks and figure out what was the fit. And being a neuroscientist who is a keynote speaker is not a common phenomenon. That is not a natural fit. But those combine the two things that I love and the two things that I'm passionate about. So I would say expect those curves in the road. They're going to happen. And really just don't move toward what anybody else expects you to do. Just move toward what you love doing and find little steps forward toward those things that bring you joy and bring you contentment and bring you happiness and fulfillment.
And pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
I think we so often don't pay attention to how much those little things light us up. So, oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your time. I'm so glad we got to do this IRL, y'all. So if you're listening, you can also check it out on YouTube. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been fantastic.
If today's conversation lit a fire under you, here's your next move. Don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a friend, drop a review, and let's keep the conversation going. Remember, your potential is limitless. The only thing standing in your way, those sticky floors. But guess what? You have the power to break through them. So go out there, take up space, and let's shatter some ceilings together.